And that's how this, my spiritual journey started. And I believe that mostly, deja vus that we have during our lives are mostly about, for instance, dreams that we didn't remember, we didn't remember them, or maybe other precognitive ways, maybe some previously, not in dreams, but maybe, some clear visions we just had, where while doing something, while driving a car or something. I believe that all the deja vus are like that.
Welcome back to the I Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and you're probably wondering why is all this, why is there all this light on your face? It's because I have to record earlier in the day because my guest for today, Mr. Aleksander Czeszkiewicz, he's an author. He has a channel. We're going to go ahead and promote that channel. Really cool stuff. I just checked it out. Go over and subscribe to his channel. Links in the description below. And if you want to do me a favor, like and subscribe to my channel as well. Hit that bell notification. And if you have anything you want to talk to me about, please do so and reach out to me at the Eye of Jupiter podcast at gmail.com, or you can go ahead on all my social links there and write me that way, mostly Messenger on Facebook and things of that nature. So with all that out of the way, let's welcome to the show Mr. Aleksander Czeszkiewicz. Hello, sir.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, my friend.
No, don't worry. I know we will enjoy, our conversation. I love such podcasts, so don't worry.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. So I actually have a couple students in Poland. I am an English teacher, and one of my students is actually coming. She's here. She just landed in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and if I'm lucky, I'll meet up with her tomorrow and we'll have a cup of coffee. So she's excited about the weather because we're currently at about 28 degrees Celsius. Not the same in your part of the world, is it?
Yeah, we had -20 recently. Right now it's a little bit better, like 0, -5, but still, winter going on.
Yeah. Like I said, I lived in Germany for 20 years, so I'm working on my third language, Spanish. I still stink at it, but we'll get there nonetheless. Alex, please tell everybody, introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about yourself, and the reason why you're coming on today to talk to me.
My name is Aleksander Czeszkiewicz, and I'm a researcher and author from Poland. Right now, I'm also a student at my local university here in Gdańsk, and I study history, but with a broader personal specialization in the ancient Middle East, including languages and religions. And very soon, I will start learning ancient Hebrew, Greek, so I'm very excited about that. My book is Déjà Vu, has everything already been. I'm 23 years old right now, and I wrote this book when I was just 17. So, but it's not like Teenage Crap or something. It's like 400 plus pages book with, footnotes, bibliography, everything. So this is my book in English. And I'm interested in all the biggest mysteries of the entire reality, entire universe. But I would say my main idea, with the book and with the past would be lost history of humanity, but it's not only history.
Well, so your language is going to be, would you say it was Sanskrit or ancient Hebrew? Is that the one? Which one did you say?
Yeah, I will be. I'm into this program, and I will start soon learning ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek. I already started a bit of Latin, but only like for a month or something.
Okay, man. I mean, you have similar interests that I have. I mean, German. People who watch the show know I speak German. I'm getting probably about 50-60% in on Spanish, and the one after that for me is going to be Mayan. So
wow,
so
nice,
I'm going to go. They call this the old world, and they call where you're from the old world, and here the new world. But due to recent like findings, especially with LiDAR and the destruction of the rainforest and things of that nature, this actually might be the old world. And I'm really like hyped. I checked out your channel. Could you tell people what the name of your channel is and what they can find over there?
I think the easiest way would be just to copy paste my name and surname, and wherever you find me in English, it's me on plenty also of other podcast interviews. I also have Polish social media, so look where it's in English. So just copy and paste my name and surname, Aleksander Czeszkiewicz, and my book is Déjà Vu, has everything already been, and it's on Amazon, like US, UK, Canada, Australia, and a few more.
Awesome, man. I just subscribed to it. You're 4 away from reaching that 1,000 goal, man. I know your other channel, your Polish channel, is like much larger. That's something like 13,000, I think I saw.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you. Being a
Thank
podcaster
you.
myself, or a person who does a channel, I know how hard it is to get there. So tell me a little bit about your book. Deja Vu is a very interesting subject to get into, because I think in one way or another, we have all experienced it. And I would like to know what you have to say about it.
Yes, my book Déjà Vu has everything already been. The title is about cyclicality of history, of lost civilizations and stuff like that, but I would say that 70% of the book is about lost history, and the rest 25-30% is about, its connection to metaphysical cosmic cycles of time, and further, with spirituality, metaphysics, how it's all tied together.
Oof,
So it's mostly
man.
about that, and I'm not, whether in my book or in podcasts like this or in my YouTube videos, I'm not forcing anyone, you need to believe in Atlantis and stuff like that. What I'm doing in my book, and with everything I'm doing, I'm just showing possibilities, that there is much more for us to know about our past, and what we know is just a tip of the iceberg, like maybe 3, maybe 5% when it comes to our past. And it's very interesting because I only started studying recently last year, and I remember I was shocked when I, went again, because of course I started with, within the mainstream paradigm, then I went further into, the unknown, into the alternative conspiracy
Okay.
theory stuff. And, then for many years I've been in this, place, and right now I came back to the academic stuff, and I was shocked to learn that, everything in the academia is changing, that what I've been talking about for the last 5 years, about that our history may be older, there may have been lost civilizations, these kind of ideas, despite all of the debunkers on the internet telling us that it's not true or something like that, no, they do not represent the latest academic stuff, and we are
Mm-hmm.
even within the mainstream paradigm pushing the roots of both anatomically modern humans, but also civilization back and back by thousands, or even in some
Yeah.
cases tens of thousands of years.
Yeah, dude, it's so interesting. The monolith known as like academia is being torn apart brick by brick for a good cause, because science is the newest thing, and you have to be able to present and then test against it's the theory itself. There's no such thing as like the scientific consensus. That word doesn't exist. And all you have to do is look at like just Egyptology and realize that if you go there, that you can't even do any type of scientific like measurements or anything. You have to say, I'm a tourist and I'm just here looking at it because it's pretty and take your pictures. But that's being torn apart from people like yourself, people that I love, like Graham Hancock. Big fan of Graham Hancock. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Randall Carlson and his younger Dryas, his studying on that in the large the things that he's found in the Badlands, some of it too, but most the
Scablands.
Scatlands. Thank you, sir. And all those things I'm completely interested. And if Deja Vu is just part of that, and we're going to go into ancient history, then you got my ear, buddy. So where did it begin for you? How did you, what is it? You're a younger gentleman, 23 years old. Damn, I could probably be your dad. Yeah, I could be your dad. And where did it start for you, man? How did you get interested in this?
Yeah, my story is very interesting because parallel to research on lost history, lost civilizations and stuff like that, alternative conspiracy theories, parallel to that, I would say I had my own spiritual awakening, or, spiritual journey of some sort. It started very early, I would say, even before that, when I was a little kid, I always was fascinated by, history, by science, My dad loved watching documentaries on TV. My mom was a historian, I had plenty of books at home, so, I was skimming through them them, what was interesting to me. Also here in Poland, we have plenty of, medieval architecture everywhere, plenty of castles. So I was visiting it as a kid. So maybe that's why I was a little bit always fascinated into that. But the biggest shift came during my middle high school. So when I was about 15, 16 years old, probably. And here we had a reform in education in Poland. And, they were completely dismantling the idea of middle high school. And, they get that from primary school you would go later immediately into high school, and I was the last year of the middle high school,
Yeah, middle school or junior high. Yep.
yeah, and it was very, very hard to get to high school because there were double the people, because also the primary school people were going there. And I was always a good student, I didn't care much about, I was always passing all the tests, but I thought to myself that the easiest route for me that would completely even, let me not learn other subjects that are not interesting to me would be to go into competitions, because there were the whole district of Poland competitions, and if you got a high rank in this competition, you could, just choose any kind of high school you want here in Poland. And I went on that.
What do you mean by competition?
Competition contest. I went into historical, also like English one in the middle high school.
So you mean like debates or something?
No, like exam competition,
Oh, okay. Very
but
cool.
on a big level here of the district of Poland. And, and I passed it, of course, so I could choose whatever high school I wanted to. So I was, not caring anymore about any other subject. So this is the basic of the story. But, it was during that, because the biggest one was the historical competition. And for that, I needed to learn from much, higher levels than, of course, the middle high school, even from academic textbooks. And I had to learn, not like particular period of our history, but from the hominids, prehistory, millions of years ago, up until 1950s, 1980s, and stuff like that. And it was during that time when I was learning that I started asking basic questions. How do we know that, this entire beautiful picture of evolution is true? How do we know that our past happened in this particular way? How we know that, okay, we evolved from this to that? How do we know that these were the first civilizations? How do we know that why we don't know any previous civilizations? Is it completely, closed case that, there weren't any civilizations before? And it was during this times, I was researching a lot, digging deeper and deeper, and I thought to myself, if, I am being ignored within the, casual sources, the mainstream with my questions, and it's just, stupid people asking these questions, pseudoscience and stuff like that, I thought to myself, what our ancient ancestors, even 2,000-3,000 years ago or before that, were telling about the history? They were much closer to this time, so maybe they knew something that we nowadays in 21st century did not know about. So I then dug into Sumerian kings list, Atlantis of Plato, his Timaeus and Critias and stuff like that. And it was there that I started going beyond just the mainstream narrative and into the alternative history. So this was my journey. That's why I wrote this book first in Polish when I was just 17. Then I needed to wait legally to be 18 to publish it, because 18 is the legal age here in Poland. And then at the age of 19 I translated it myself into English, and right now I'm in the process of translation a book, but the other way around, from English to Polish, of my friend about Atlantis, of my friend author Michael Leflem. So interesting journey. Yeah, and it was parallel to these things that I also had, I always compared that, these research, logical, source analysis and science and stuff like that was the masculine part of everything. But at the same time, I had like the feminine part of the journey, like spiritual, inner stuff, dreams, so a feminine part at the same time, during exactly when I was like a teenager, maybe 15, 16 years old. And I would say that before that, I was mostly agnostic, maybe a little bit on the atheistic side, that I'm not convinced about, spirituality, God, religion, stuff like that. But it was, during these times, my research on my book, but it was, parallel to that I started my spiritual journey, spiritual experiences. It started with actually prophetic dreams, but prophetic not.
Whoa. Okay. I'm gonna stop you right there, dude.
Okay.
You can roll. You can roll, man. You got a rapid fire machine gun of words and things of that nature. Let's go with the prophetic dreams. Go into this prophetic dreams. Tell me what you dreamt and what the symbolism in there was for you.
Yeah, so this was actually that's why I wanted to talk about, because these prophetic dreams kick-started my spiritual inner journey to everything. Because as I said, I was rational person. I thought that okay, maybe we are just as biology says, just machines at the biological machines at the tip, at the peak of the evolution and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
so materialistic science. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, yes.
Hmm.
And and then I started having strange dreams. And I mean prophetic in the brackets, because these were not like, okay, these are the lottery winning numbers, or this will be your future wife or something. This
No,
will
it's not
be
like
how your career.
it's not
No,
like
no,
Jesus came down with like a loaf of
no.
bread and said, "Go ahead, make yourself a sandwich." It's something like within these dreams. Like I'm basically went down the same path you did, man. I was when I was young, I was just kind of agnostic, and when I became like 18, 20, I was like, nah, dude, I'm atheistic. I started watching, Daniel Denton and Christopher Hitchens and all these, new atheist authors, and actually read their books. And then I actually read, Darwin's book, the 1859 release of The Origin of Species. I've actually read that damn book because I wanted to know, what is it that we believe that we do believe? Is that what it is? Because most of the time, what you realize, especially in the world we live in now, people just reiterate or just regurgitate what they've heard, especially when it comes to academia now, all the communistic concepts that they like to throw in there instead of, individualism. They always talk about collectivism and things of that nature. And if you, as myself, stand out and say, I don't think it that way, I think it to be this way, or could we think about it that way? Then they use words like gatekeeping words like pseudoscience, alternative science, conspiracy theories, and they do all that to try to disregard or to denigrate your point of view. And someone to being as young as you are to now say, I don't know about all that, and then having these type of dreams is it's a very interesting sign of a spiritual awakening in you, as well as being cognitively powerful. So yeah, so tell me like about one of your dreams, the one that made you go, okay, something's up.
Yes, these were, maybe not one, but a set of crazy dreams. And I was still, during times that I had these dreams, I was still, doubtful. I was rational. Maybe these are just projection of my subconscious mind and stuff like that. And these were, again, not big dreams, but the minor and, most minuscule stuff that could happen. So, for instance, I had a dream that, I was in a particular setup, let's say in a specific place in my school, and I was talking to my colleague or something. And it was very vivid. So let's say we were in this direction, pointed, standing and talking, and we were talking about, for instance, things that I couldn't know about before, because, for instance, something that we will, be learning month later or 2 months later, something what was on the exam or something. And I initially thought that, okay, it's strange. And, that's why déjà vu, because then I realized when this thing happened, let's say a month or two ago, or in other cases, it was from week to week or in 2 week spans, this, minor things happening, minor situations, nothing important. It was just like synchronicity. I started having déjà vus that, wait a second, it's exactly the same setup. It's exactly the same thing. And as I said, I was doubtful at the first. Maybe it's just, just my mind thought, projected, this idea. Subconscious mind is, of course, powerful. It could do that. But then with this information, for instance, about the exam that we haven't even started, talking about learning for, this was beyond my any kind of comprehension. And the biggest
Fantastic.
thing,
Fantastic,
yeah,
brother. Yeah.
and the biggest one was meeting a person in my dream. And, this person was, let's say, a relative of a colleague, like classroom friend that I didn't know almost anything about, just hey. And, I didn't have any personal connection with this person. And I had a dream that this is relative of this person. And, this person was looking very specifically, not like casual person, but, this was tall person, crazy hair and stuff like that. And this person was, not even similar to the person I knew, because maybe again subconsciously I was projecting that is the image how relative of this person may look like, because there are similar genes and stuff like that. But no, this person was looking completely different. And I
Yeah, I
remember
understand. I understand.
And I remember once I met this person, it was also at school because we were signing something with our relatives, and I met this person. Wait a minute, this is exactly the same guy from my dream. I never met him before. And we were with parents, with relatives, this event in our school, and I remember, okay, there was a queue for signing some documents or something. And I
Okay.
went, back, at him in the queue, just after him in the queue. And I remember when he was signing it was this, person, this surname of this person that I knew, and I had this information in my dream. So information, beyond precognition, beyond, rational understanding, and information being given before in the dream. And, I said, no, this is too much. And that's how this, my spiritual journey started. And I believe that mostly, deja vus that we have during our lives are mostly about, for instance, dreams that we didn't remember, we didn't remember them, or maybe other precognitive ways, maybe some previously not in dreams, but maybe, some clear visions we just had, where while doing something, while driving a car or something. I believe that all the deja vus are like that because, again, from my experience, even casually these days, I'm having sometimes deja vu, and I remember, wait a second, month or two ago, I was, for instance, thinking about similar thing, or had this intuitive thoughts maybe
Yeah.
about this thing. So this was this spiritual part of the journey.
Yeah, it's interesting how people just like chalk things up to coincidences, they're just like, oh, it just happened to be that way. But I think like just the simple concept of creating anything, whether it be a song, a sentence, or anything, or a product that's never been created or a way of thinking, philosophy, for example, they'll say things simply like, oh, it's just a muse, which is the
Mhm.
acceptable one. That's the only one that's accepted. Or they'll just use, oh, it's your imagination. But it came from somewhere. It came from somewhere. Jimi Hendrix just didn't, of course he was on the backbone of, blues, but that came from somewhere else along the line. But to do what he did, I'm just using him as an example, came from something. And, I might even call it divine, like where, say, for example, as a joke writer, I'm a comedian. Like sometimes the joke just come pre-packaged, completely formed. Here it is, and it's a 2-minute bit, and I just go, I don't know where the hell that came from. So imagination is just like a bad word for it. It's like a cover word. Even like the word God is a cover word that has a lot of negative connotation attached to it. So I am, just a a little bit of like to let you know a little bit about myself. I then started going down these rabbit holes, that which is the word they like to use, which drives me crazy now. But just my interest followed me into the world of conspiracies. And I would like, Joe Rogan kind of woke up a lot of things in me where I'd be like, oh, what is psychedelics, and then I would listen to like, Terrence McKenna, and then he would talk about I took a heroic dose, which would be a Bill Hicks reference to Terrence McKenna, which is the comedy side through it, and then it would connect to one of my favorite bands in the whole world, which is Tool. And what are they talking about? Spiral out your consciousness, reach out and figure out what it means to exist. Or it's a famous quote from some author, like the unexperienced, the unexamined life is like the life not worth living. And then when you start going into the conspiracies, things start happening. You start realizing, like, okay, they have all the money in the world, they have all the power in the world, their families are set up for generations upon generations. Then what is it that they really want? And it comes to this like spirituality thing where, like, okay, wait, these people are truly evil. So if they're truly evil, that means there is a true evil. Then to kind of springboard off of like Eastern mysticism, you go, there has to be a true good. Therefore, that dirty word that could possibly be seen as weird, God came into my life, And I was like, okay, but I'm not religious. There's a difference.
Yes, yes, of
you know,
course.
I do also see that some are better than others. And let's be honest there too. But people don't want to say that. But if I stand back and look at it from the point of view of the observer, then you say, this one is better than this one because of XYZ. And it's just, it all kind of ties in together. We all have this intuition, and a lot of people don't want to think about it. There is a lot of like NPCs out there, if you know what I mean. They watch their football, they scratch themselves, drink their beer, have their kids, and just go, yeah, life is crazy, ain't it? does that bother you that people don't do that?
I think it may be to some extent, but to some extent, of course, their personal choice that okay, I want to just live casual life, and I think it's nothing bad with that. But in some cases, it's not like their choice, but it's that they cannot see any kind of alternative to that, and any kind of alternative is being crazy or something like that. So they are forced by the society and by all the conditions and
Culture
by
and
their lack of power.
yeah, and you also have to be a person who maybe and I don't want to seem like egoistic, but being in a position that I would find, I think you and I are very similar on a lot of things. You're like, I've been doing this podcast for 2 years, and you're one of the few people that I go, yeah, I know this guy. I know who you are, in a sense, of course. But then there's like, you have to like realize being in the position that you are, that a lot of people are on their own journey, and you can't judge them. That maybe
Or
somewhere along the
force them.
line, of course not. All you can do is love them.
That's why
Yeah,
what I said at the beginning, that I'm not forcing, into all the
can't.
theories and on the conspiracy. No, I just, and the same plenty of people say, oh, why I'm not, in this opinion about this kind of conspiracy theory, why I'm, like the middleman, because I think that I can wake up and, let's say that I can make people more motivated to some extent or inspired. I can inspire more people by just being okay on this edge of the known, the system, and of the unknown. And
Yeah,
because of that, I can take them like the hero's journey is all about, this and all the myths and all the
or
even
known
modern
and hidden,
works.
or known and hidden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or known and hidden, because there's a lot of things they just simply don't want us to know. I mean, what? Okay, to give people a little bit of context, just to ground them back in their foundation of scientific understanding and how that it relates to their life. Like if you go ahead and look at Egyptology, they will tell you that the Great Pyramids and all the pyramids on the Giza Plateau are approximately 5,500 years old, right? But then you look at, for example, the Sphinx, which the head doesn't fit to the size proportionally, and they believe that in the past it was a lion's head. And the reason they believe that is because of the precession of the equinox, that the lion's head at some point was actually looking towards the constellation Leo. And then you look at the enclosure it sits in, and then Robert Schoch said, well, a geologist, Boston University, was like, this is probably water erosion. We're like, wait a minute, this is a desert, bro. How old can this possibly be? And they're like, well, it can't be. And then the big gun, smoking gun came out, Göbekli Tepe, which means Potbelly Hill, I think it is, which is
Yeah.
found in Turkey. There's also another one nearby, which I just recently learned about. I can't remember the name of it.
Karahan Tepe, there are actually a few
Oh,
tepes,
there you go.
even
Damn,
before
dude. Oh,
Göbekli Tepe. Yeah.
you're fucking awesome, bro. I'm glad you can actually remember that. Like, tell people, like people who do not know about Göbekli Tepe, it's a Turkish word, hard to pronounce. Tell them about that and how it goes against mainstream science when it comes to hunter-gatherers and things of that nature.
Yes, Göbekli Tepe is a megalithic site dating to around 9600 BC. So, it was the period, according to science, that people just started sedentary lifestyle. It came from, millions of years of nomadic hunter-gatherer life. And, immediately they created such megaliths. And as I said, we've got other tepes which predate it, even by a few thousand years in some cases, and they are less advanced. So we see right now that everything is older. But I would even start, we come back to the Göbekli Tepe in a minute, but what was
Okay.
shocking during my research is how recent the modern version of our history is, because 100 years ago, and even here in Poland 40 years ago, there wasn't like basic nowadays notion that the ancient Sumer was the first civilization. There was
Okay.
almost no information about that. And I always compare ancient Sumer, which is now the mainstream, all the Mesopotamian civilization, because there were plenty of them: Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Chaldeans, and many more. These kinds of civilizations were conspiracy conspiracy theory just at the beginning of the 1800s. Most, any kind of excavations in ancient Mesopotamia started in 1840s, about 1843, all of them. And before 1840s, we thought that, okay, these mentions of, for instance, biblical Abraham came from the Sumerian city of Ur, which we now know was a real city. But not only, religious texts, but also, historians, ancient historians, Herodotus and others were telling that, yes, there were civilizations, entire huge cities in the area of ancient Mesopotamia, but they were considered mythical completely because we hadn't found almost anything before the 1840s. So less than 200 years ago, we just started excavating, what we now call the mainstream basic knowledge that ancient Sumer was the first.
So it gives people,
crazy.
It's really great, man, to give people a foundational concept of what is now being taught is only been discovered for about 200 years. And before that, they had another thought in the concept. And people will say, just to kind of swing it back to go back Tepli, they'll say things like, how did he know that it's that old? And they go, because they know to do carbon-14 dating, you need some type of organic substance to measure that. Well, not only the way they measured it is that the whole site was buried at one time. So no matter where they checked within the site, and only I think a very small portion of it has been actually dug up because of the Syrian conflict and things of that nature. I think
5-10%, maybe 50. Yes, it's much bigger.
Yeah, and so they're like, it's like I think it's 12,000 years, which is oddly enough the same time as the younger
Atlantis.
Dryas
Atlantis
impact.
Also.
And Atlantis, which is, like you said earlier, which Plato
another coincidence.
It's so crazy. Oh, it's a lot of coincidences. Then I'm here on the Yucatan. You know that the big impact is literally, the outer edges of that impact is literally an hour away from me.
Yeah.
Which is good. So if another one hits, lightning doesn't strike twice, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And all these things are just there for the taking now. This is a new frontier because you, I, many others, people who do much more in-depth, research, boots on ground, are starting to realize that all of this is not what they, also to kind of go back to academia in the monolithic way in which they teach things. These people, all their books, all their, what do they call that when you are at a college and you can't leave? They can't fire you. It's like starts with a T. So their whole thing is that this is what it is, and if not, they lose money instead of actually looking into it. And then people who poke holes in it are now then made fun of. But it's starting to, concepts of like Clovis first is being completely eroded. And I think it's a good thing, man. I really do.
Yeah, maybe let's go for a bit within, academic news again, because last year I started and I was positively surprised what I've learned at my university. For instance, I was, focusing for the last few months on academic books, mainly about, prehistory and ancient Mesopotamia and stuff like that. And I had a book from 2004 and I read it about, anatomically modern humans. And it was mentioned, and I was laughing very hard, that anatomically modern humans, so just as we today, appeared about 50,000 years ago, maximum 100. This was 2004. And right now, the modern consensus is that anatomically modern humans have been here for the last 315,000 years. So 6 times the 50,000 year date. But also, it is commonly right now accepted that they are much older, but we just, haven't found all the remains, of course, of them. And it is speculated, officially, of course, academically speculated, so not like conspiracy theory speculated, that anatomically modern humans diverged from other hominids about 500,000 years ago. So 10 times the 50,000 years of this 2004 book. There's 22 years. So imagine the knowledge from the 70s, from the 80s. It's all changing. The same what I've learned about taking the roots of civilization back. Just as in the 1840s, before that we thought that okay, maybe Egypt is the oldest one. And again, Egypt, most of the discoveries at Egypt were started during the Napoleonic expeditions at at the end 1799, 1800. So again, just few decades before that. And in the 1700s, 1600s, we thought that Greece and Rome were the first civilizations.
Right.
So in the last few hundred years, we were taking the roots of civilization back many, many times. And what is interesting is even right now when it comes to ancient Sumer, because modern version ancient Sumer began 4000 BC, maybe 3500 BC. But what is interesting is this date is the official one, because from this date we have the first evidence of writing and civilization. But civilization in the region of ancient Mesopotamia where the ancient Sumer was much older than that. Even 8,000 or 2,000 years before that, civilization was also big there. But we just haven't found the remains of their script during this period, so we cannot say that ancient Sumer began 5,000 years BC, because we just haven't found, it's just schematic bureaucratic thing that we cannot call it civilization.
It's difficult to find. It's difficult to find. I mean, even if, like, say, for example, all of a sudden all of humanity just happened not to exist anymore, within a couple hundred years, the only thing that will be left are our stone structures, maybe not even the Statue of Liberty, but I'm talking like the pyramids that we now find. I'm an English tutor, but you wouldn't know it. And
no, I think you speak greatly.
Thank you, buddy. We can speak to German too, but you probably speak German too a little bit, don't you?
No, I used to, but I was learning German for 8 years privately, and I don't know a thing after a few years. No, for me it's not a fun language. So I just almost nothing. Even when I have some German thing to read, I only know a few words, and I was learning it for 8 years. So
yeah, when you're kind of like me, when you're engulfed in the culture, like you just can't not speak it. Then you feel like a dummy anyway. So you have to speak it, and you know what the hell they're talking about. It's very important. If you want to learn a language, to actually live there, it's a lot easier than to learn it externally. I think we're going through a big cosmic shift. Like, you see these, to bring it up to like speed, you see these whole Epstein files, right? And people are like, oh, what's going on here? And then people like Alex Jones are like, yeah, I've told you about this for a long time. There's an island that elites go to, and they, kind of blackmail people, and people are like, you're crazy. And then he, a broken clock is right twice a day. And then he went to Bohemian Grove and actually seen them burning the effigy to Moloch. And people are like, oh, I didn't know that was a real thing. And now I think just recently, a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday, Trump's like, yeah, we're going to release the alien files. And the joke right now is, it is truly right now Predator versus Alien. Which really made me laugh. But we are living in
crazy times.
Might even be the most interesting time in history.
Even the Atlantis in the Epstein files, they were even, 2004, 2005, they were searching and they wanted independently to find out. And I see, it's the same thing that the skeptics, the debunkers say, only, stupid people who are primitive believe in religions or in higher powers, supernatural and rational people do not believe in that. But you see, even throughout the centuries, most of the, it's the same thing as you could, let's say person who was a genius, like you ridicule what Leonardo da Vinci is telling you because you know better and you achieved nothing, let's say. So it's the same with all of this stuff that, the elites and, plenty of high power people are into, all of the esoterica, all of the Atlantean stuff. And, no, still it's nothing. It's pseudoscience, is BS. And it's, it has been from the centuries with, all people in power. And I compare it always, to Leonardo da Vinci, comes to you and wants to give you advice, and you, let's say, haven't achieved anything in your life, and you say, no, you do not know thing because I know better, because it's rational or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on. Like, the point I was going to say, I'm listening so hard to what you're saying and trying to add on to what you're saying, and a lot
Let's
of times,
come back, finish the Göbekli Tepe line, okay?
Oh shit, go for it.
So we can go into other topics, because I want to go into what you said about the stones, being for thousands of years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and modern civilization decaying very fast. So this will be another point that we can talk about. But coming back to the Göbekli Tepe, it was again in the 70s, in the 80s, in the early 90s. Everyone was ridiculed about their theories, which you mentioned about the Sphinx, about the pyramids being older, because the main argument, and again it was back then a rational argument, was that we do not have any evidence that 7000 BC, 10,000 BC, that's why Atlantis was ridiculed for so long. We didn't have any evidence that people were capable of creating megalithic builds, like the Sphinx or like the pyramids. But then, in the mid-90s, we found Göbekli Tepe, as you've said, which was immediately dated, the date of burial about 9600 BC and even older than that. And you see that, okay, this argument that was used before all the time, with Daniken, with Hancock and others, isn't anymore good in this situation. That, we have evidence that people were building huge megalithic stuff much older than that. The same, coming back even, connecting all of the threads with, Mesopotamia and other stuff. I learned here last year at my university that we have here in Eastern Europe known, recorded, archaeologically speaking, scientifically speaking, proto-civilizations, pre-civilizations here in Eastern Europe, which were as big as ancient Sumer, we know, because during the peak of the ancient Sumerian times, the biggest cities were having from about 30,000 people to 50,000 people. And here in Eastern Europe, in Serbia, Romania, we have cities of, again, about 30,000 people, the same as in ancient Sumer. And as I've said with the case of ancient Sumer, that it was older, but we haven't found the script yet, and okay, our definition of civilization needs to include writing system. The same here in Eastern Europe. This civilization predates Sumerians by 8,000 or 2,000 years at least. They were very advanced. They used even chariots. It's the first case of chariots using all around the world, the first at least from the evidence that survived all of these thousands of years. But again, we have something that looks like script, but just because we cannot decipher it, or we cannot say, because we cannot decipher this thing that looks like writing, we cannot even say officially that it's writing. We cannot call these civilizations. These are called pre-civilization, proto-civilizations, to be exact. So again, as we've said, that conspiracy theories are becoming truth, with all of the files being released. The same with history, that history is catching up with conspiracy theories. And I'm even confident from what I've been learning over the last few years that maybe in 20, maybe in 30, maybe in 50 years, the idea that during the Atlantis times there was any kind of civilization could be mainstream in, let's say, 30 or 50 years from now.
All right, man. I'm going to use two different baseball analogies here. Now, I'm American, so we're going to use baseball. So if a conspiracy theories are easily batting 500, which will make you the best batter of all time. Now I'm going to throw you a curveball. That's a ball that curves when you throw it. Here's damn it, my brain is off today. It's just been one of those things that we that are opening, that's been opening the doors, and the doors are going to be wide open. My curveball to you is, what is your take on aliens? I know there's probably some connection that you're finding within your studying and the things that you're a very well-read person. You're saying shit I've never heard of.
By the way, these are real books, because plenty of people think it's AI. No, these are, real. I can,
No, it's way better than me. Oh, those are real books. I can tell. I know. I don't know if you read all of them, but if you did, well, congratulations.
People say, "Oh, I'm, planted by government or something. This is AI."
There are people who are planted by the government. There's a dude now going around telling all the CIA secrets. I don't know if you've seen him on the internet. He's telling all the CIA secrets. And I'm thinking, as a conspiracy theorist myself, going, why is he out there telling all the CIA secrets? So that when these Epstein stuff comes out, that they're kind of like, oh, we've been telling you. It just makes me wonder why that would be allowed to come out. But reading what you've read, knowing that you've seen, especially in certain, hieroglyphics, there's certain, like, the bags, when it comes to, the white people who come from the sea and bring knowledge and things of that nature. What can you tell people about maybe what we will call, aliens? What have you kind of derived in your research?
Yeah, my I think biggest theory, and it's mostly about the again connections from all over the ancient world, but also modern phenomena, is that what we call aliens, ancient aliens especially, were not physical beings, were like some kind of ghosts, some kind of
Ooh.
spiritual entities, non-physical
Woo.
ones. And I think that it's the easiest way, to prove aliens. Even right now, there are being done some experiments about that, but I think we need more of that because plenty of people, for instance, with, hallucinatory experiences, after taking ayahuasca, DMT, or LSD, or
Ooh.
another kind of mind altering drugs,
Mhm.
consciousness altering drugs, experience similar things. And, it's the same like with hypnotic regression, that you regress people from different religions and they are telling you the same thing. And you see and okay, let's start with this idea. Okay, we get people into altered states of consciousness, and it can be either, through drugs or through, let's say, natural experiences, out of body even experiences, near death experiences, and they are telling you mostly the same thing. Of course, the details are different, but again, the biggest stuff is the same with all of these experiences. And you can say that, okay, it's like primitive mind of humans, during this altered states of consciousness, and all of us have similar ideas. Okay, you can do it like that, but then you check out what these people are telling you, and they are, just as in my case with dreams, telling you, because again, I was the same doubtful. I wanted, even, basically in scientific terms, double check everything, double blind experiment. But when the information that is, being presented by these people is beyond their rational minds, or, something beyond just it being their hallucinatory experience, their projections of their minds, then you can see that, okay, there is something more to all of this. And you see that with ancient people, that, for instance, in the legends of the Amazon rainforest people, these kind of spiritual beings taught them the basic stuff, and even taught them
Oof.
to create this ayahuasca, which is, a
Yes.
mixture of plenty of different
That are
plants.
from different parts of the forest. They would mix a leaf with a root, and when they asked them, "Hey, how did you guys learn that?"
Yeah,
Oh, the ancient spirits told us, and people are like, "Get the hell."
exactly.
Yes, dude.
Exactly. I think that's, the best evidence for the aliens. Even right now we can prove it. Even within the scientific realm, we can say, okay, there is something much more. That's why I think about that. But okay, let's go, because this idea of ancient aliens, ancient astronauts, and stuff like
Oh,
that. But
I don't
if
know
you
about all
look
that,
at
but yeah.
other myths, from all around the world, like even ancient Sumerian, ancient Mesopotamian stuff, these Anunnaki, the famous one, Apkal, the other one you mentioned with the famous handbags, I will come to
The
that in a minute.
Pleiadians, the Pleiadians.
Yeah, but these are, from what I've learned, I have some like true sources, texts in English or in Polish, translated directly from the cuneiform tablets and stuff like that. In
Oh,
most of the
cuneiform.
cases, these are
Okay.
not described as physical beings. These are like ethereal, spiritual ones. And even, for instance, in the Epic of Etrahasis, the god Enki is, tries to warn Etrahasis that there will be a flood and he needs to build a boat. And if he's the Anunnaki, one of the highest gods, why he is not coming to him and, in the flesh, true strong Anunnaki, and saying, you stupid person, build a boat. This would be our story that we could imagine. But this Enki, one of the highest gods, is coming into a dream of Atrahasis, and even in this dream, it shows that he isn't anything like special. He's just like a nightmare. He's just like a spirit or a ghost that can be experienced, by all of us, because he comes into the dream of Atrahasis, and it isn't one dream. He's replaying this mantra, Atrahasis, destroy your house, build an ark, destroy your house, build an ark, and he repeats this mantra all over again a few nights, not like a single dream, a single night. So it shows,
Okay.
in my opinion, the evidence that these are not like special alien beings which are powerful and stuff like that. These are just like casual experience that, oh, I dreamt of a deceased relative of mine, or oh, I had a ghost in my dream, or something like that. These are
Hmm.
just beings, just as in the case of ayahuasca. Maybe, this was more vivid experience to them, but, again, some kind of spirits of nature telling them how to mix these things together. So my personal stuff is that these are not, at least not 100% material beings. Maybe, with the UFO stuff, they materialize to some extent,
Oh yeah,
maybe they are just that. But
they
I
talk
think that
about
in
stuff,
most
man.
cases, they are
Yeah,
non-physical.
you're over on my side of the boat, man. This is what we're on the same boat, bro. Trying to figure it out because I say that a lot of us over here in this podcast area that I'm in, when it comes to cryptids and things like that. I don't know how much you know about, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the Yowie, all those things. These things, there's people who will swear up and down they're only physical beings. There's some that will say they call it the woo and people actually fight over these concepts, even though no one really knows. But what I've been experiencing through all the interviews I'm having, that these things are both physical and non-physical, that they actually are like stepping through some type of portal into the reality. They bring knowledge with them too. They do things like mind speak. They do things like make you sick if they don't like you. They can like put out some type of wave, what people call ultrasound, and they'll get things like, oh, we're not from this planet. We are sentient beings, not from this planet. Sometimes they will speak native tongues, like Native American tongues, where people go, I know what they're talking about. They said, get out of here. And even the UFO stuff, people say, I've been transported through walls. It's physical, but it's not physical. So what you're saying about, the gods of the past and ancient history is lining up with a lot of experiences people are having at this very moment in time, and going back through all the history. Even the Moses concept of which you were referring to, that is found throughout all text and lore or folklore through basically every human tribe throughout the world. So there is something up here, man. And I wouldn't say we're on the spear tip. We're somewhere on that arrow, brother.
Yeah, we can go into, Yeti, Sasquatch and stuff like that, because what's interesting, I think, again, just as you, that most, as in the case of the aliens, this may be non-physical beings, but when it comes to the, physical Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot stuff, even, again, coming back to ancient Sumer, the oldest text in the world, the Epic of Gilgamesh, tells you of a hominid or like a Bigfoot being called Enkidu, who is created by gods, and they send him to the casual humans because the Gilgamesh is half, 1/3 human and 2/3 divine, and he's, the strongest man alive. So they create this hominid, this Yeti, this Sasquatch, and they say, it's hairy, it's more primitive, but still it's similar to humans, and it, may be a little bit like on the dumb side of intellect, but again, it can even live among just casual humans, which is very interesting. So when the oldest text is mentioning such being, and I always say to people the same with giants, the same with Yeti. For instance, right now we are the only human beings, like hominid beings, because all the chimpanzees and other apes are not on our level, because they are not called, for instance, hominids like Australopithecus, Denisovans, Neanderthals, because they do not create culture like ours. They are not, in this case, as advanced to create, like, they create some tools, they are advanced in their own way, but they are not similar to us. But it's the only, actually, even, scientists are, I've heard a few scientists here in Poland, talking just fun on the podcast, that this is the only time during anatomically human history that we are alone. And in the previous time, for instance, we thought for many decades that Neanderthals were our ancestors, but right now it's basic knowledge that we coexisted with Neanderthals.
Oh yeah, we have like, I think 0.2% of our DNA is actually something like that.
So they were, compatible
Europeans
with
like
us.
you and I, so that's why we had this. We're huge, and we're not very bright.
Yes, and but it's not only Neanderthals, because I don't remember the exact date. I think about 80,000 years ago, not that long ago, 80,000 years ago. Still within the time frames of, again, anatomically modern humans, we coexisted with 5 other hominid species, 5 others. So again, at least 6 other hominid species. And I remember talking about it, I think in January on a live show, and the host said, "Wait a minute, today," and he looked up an article from the same day that another species of hominid coexisting with humans was found in China. So we find more and more hominids with whom we're coexisting at particular times in the past. So I say, okay, we, for instance, coexist with Neanderthals, which may be a little bit like Yeti, but a little bit smaller, let's say. But also we coexisted with Homo florescensis, which were a meter tall hobbits. So I say, why we are denying, scientists are denying existence of giants? Okay, let's assume that there is, for a moment, no conspiracy that they didn't hide any kind of remains of giants, for a moment. But
dude. Okay, we'll go ahead and put a really bad patch over that part and keep going. Okay, good. All right. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. It was just really funny that you said that. I like that.
don't worry, don't worry. But again, let's for a moment say that, there was no conspiracy. But even without conspiracy, the Smithsonian hiding giant stuff, but not only Smithsonian, there are plenty of stories like that of,
Mhm.
scientists finding these giants. There's still a huge possibility if we coexisted with a small hominid being, maybe there was also a tall one that we haven't found yet, because most of these hominids were found in the last few decades. So, maybe there's tens of more of such hominids to be found that coexisted with us. And I think that the same with, Yeti, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that some of them may be physical, just in this sense, like the
Oh, they
Enkidu
have
of
their
the
they
Gilgamesh.
do physical things, man. I mean, so let me ask you a question. Do you believe that they exist?
I think so. I haven't experienced them myself, but from
Okay.
what we are talking about, all of the description, I think that
Uh-huh.
it's a real phenomenon. Maybe this is just a phenomenon, like on a spiritual level, just as my dreams or something.
Okay.
Just But I think that they for sure, in this sense, existed. But when it comes to
Have you seen?
physical, for a moment, just hominids, Bigfoot, Yeti, I've heard some stories of the Mongols when they during Middle Ages were conquering whole of the Central Asia, Europe, and stuff like that. They
Mhm.
found in Central Asia, they encountered like something that looks like Yeti hominid beings, and these beings were living in groups, not like single one like is in most cases, but in groups.
Yeah.
And they were living in primitive huts. And what is interesting, that again, they were very hairy, they were much more primitive than human being in this sense, the casual sense. Maybe they had like some, again, non-physical abilities, like what you've said about different languages and stuff like that, but they were like this primitive man. And
Mhm.
what is interesting is that they were compatible with human beings because there was at least one person being offspring of human, us and them, and he was a little bit hairy, and later he died, I think, when he was very young. But again, this wasn't like basic human being, which again is similar to this idea of
Yeah.
Nephilim angels
It was
with
been
humans
there's
and
been
stuff like that.
it's very hard to get any type of physical evidence of Sasquatch. And I'm sure you're very aware of the Patterson Gimlin film, correct?
Maybe I'm not like
It's
that
I
much
just I
into
just want
this.
I just want you because people will all I want you to do is take just when you get a chance, buddy, if you want to look into it, because it's super interesting to me. And I talked to a lot of people. I talked to a gentleman who just passed, Mr. Tom Cantrell, rest in peace, my friend. Um, he was friends with Bob Gimlin, and Bob Gimlin is still around. And it was two gentlemen who seen this. They videotaped it in 1967 in Bluff Creek. When the Sasquatch looks back over its shoulder, do me a favor, slow down the video and look at its right leg when it turns its knee out and see the wiggle in the muscles. And you're going to go, oh my God. There's MK Davis who broke it down, who showed it. He has a video called "The Fence Climber," where this thing just stepped over a fence that is 6 foot high. It just stepped over like you and I step over a toy. It's utterly fascinating. I think we have to be very sure, and we have to make sure, is better said, that when it comes to all these things, that we make sure that we stay open to all of it. So what you're saying is aligning a lot with people talking about giants of Kandahar. That's the very famous one that you probably know of. But they talk about giants all over North America. There's actually skulls that people have here. And a lot of that stuff needs to be connected together at the hip, but also independent and with itself. And we need to open up. Now, when you talk to people who've had these experiences, you will become. I've interviewed like 50 different people, and they're just like, yeah, dude, you have no idea. Like, how do you explain this and how do you explain that other than it's these damn things? And then you have people who've seen them. They'll go hunting their whole life. So you have to understand, in America, hunting is a big part of our culture. And there's people who do that their whole life, fish, hunt their whole life. They're 45 years old. One day they run across these things and have never gone back in the woods ever again. How do you explain that?
Wow.
They're just like,
Wow.
dude. Like, I had friends who were going to go down to another guy who came on my show, Mr. Darren Franks, and he's like, yeah, I'll go. And then at the last minute, he's like, I can't, I just can't, dude. It is a mystery, but I do like the fact that you, as many other people, who come on the show and talk to me about these things, I really enjoy them. I really enjoyed you coming on with me today. And could you please do me a favor, tell everybody one more time where they can find you?
I think the easiest way to find me is just copy and paste my name and surname Aleksander Czeszkiewicz, and you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, like most of the social media. You will find me on plenty of other interviews, other podcasts also, and my book is Déjà Vu, has everything already been, which you can find on Amazons like UK, US, Australia, Canada, and a few more. Thank you very
Fantastic.
much.
No, dude,
Epic.
this is exact. I've been waiting for one of these interviews for a long time, because when you go down a certain path, there's just people go, this person, oh, you need to talk to this person, and then you just get down this really cool area. But sometimes I want to pull back to what the initial concept of the show was, which is basically, let's ask questions. Let's go into these weird areas, and you've done that very well read. A fantastic guest, and I really appreciate that you took time to speak with me today.
Thank you. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it also being on your show.
Absolutely, brother. Remember, guys, we are the eye, we are aware, and I love you all.